Political action for 1964. In 5 states of the Old South, there is a strong independent electors movement, which, in effect, is an effort to reestablish the constitutional system of selecting presidents and vice presidents. A Dallas, Texas plan for political action has real promise of throwing 128 Southern Electoral College votes to a constitutionalist if Republicans and Democrats give us a Rockefeller versus Kennedy choice in 1964. Another Dallas plan, based on the presumption that there are enough well-informed constitutional conservatives to capture control of at least one of the major parties, outlines a plan of political action in all states, from neighborhood precincts to national conventions. These plans do not conflict with other plans to promote such men as Barry Goldwater and Strom Thurmond as presidential candidates in 1964. That is a summary of my report on political action for 1964. The full report after a message from my sponsor. The frenzied and threatening attack on right-wingers, the farmers' vote in the 1963 wheat referendum, the fact that much of President Kennedy's major legislative program is being delayed in Congress, the fact that many Americans, previously apathetic about governmental policies, are now greatly concerned about the direction of affairs in Washington, the fact that even Americans who have always supported the policies of totalitarian liberalism are now outraged by the behavior of the Kennedys, these are a few of the signs that a prolonged educational effort by constitutional conservatives has begun to have profound effect. If the educational work continues and is supplemented by intelligent political action until Election Day 1964, we can turn the tide against totalitarian liberalism. The Founding Fathers realized that voters on the frontiers and in remote areas of the Republic in the 18th century could not get enough information about national candidates to make an informed choice at the polls. Hence, they devised the Electoral College system. Voters in each state would elect a group of respected local men to serve as presidential electors. At a fixed time, the electors from all states would meet as an electoral college to choose a president and vice president of the United States. The electors were to be independent as individuals, to cast their votes in the Electoral College as they saw fit. If members of the Electoral College could not muster a majority for one man as president, the presidential election would be deadlocked, and the House of Representatives, each state having one vote, would elect the president. This arrangement is still in existence. As the party system came to dominate American politics, however, the intent and functioning of the Electoral College system were violated by the so-called party pledge, which was presumed to be binding upon presidential electors, and by the custom of block voting in the Electoral College. As the system now works, Democrats and Republicans each select in every state a slate of presidential electors to appear on the ballot in the general election. Voters seldom know the names of the presidential electors. Most voters do not seem to realize that they're voting for electors. They think they're voting for presidential and vice presidential candidates. But in reality, as voters choose between Republican and Democrat nominees, they are actually voting not for the nominees, but for Republican or Democrat electors in their state. The party electors who get a majority of the popular vote cast the state's entire electoral vote for the party nominees. But today there is more practical need for the pure constitutional electoral college system of selecting a president than there was in the 18th century. Today, the techniques of mass propaganda and mass thought control make it even more impossible for the average voter to get credible information about a national personality running for president. The remarkable group of statesmen, now known as the Founding Fathers, who wrote our Constitution in 1787, believed that the Electoral College system, affording the people some insulation against the heat and passions of a national election, and providing a checkmate against the popular tendency to follow blindly the most flamboyant or extravagantly financed candidate, would have a better chance to put great men into the presidency than any system of direct elections could possibly have. I agree with that view. The present system produces presidents who promise one thing and then, after election, move in the opposite direction, claiming some emergency as the reason. In 1932, Roosevelt promised the people economy, and adherence to constitutional principles, but gave them extravagance and contempt for the Constitution from 1933 onward. In 1940, Roosevelt promised the people peace while arranging a war. In 1952, Eisenhower condemned such dangerous programs as federal aid to education, but after election, recommended more federal aid to education than any previous president. In 1960, Kennedy promised a firm policy with regard to Cuba, but in 1961 made the weak Eisenhower policy even weaker. Obviously, a president chosen by the Electoral College in the true spirit of the Constitution might also betray his campaign promises. But the constitutional way of selecting presidents and vice presidents of the United States is at least the best known way for this solemn responsibility to be discharged. Certainly, as long as it is the constitutionally prescribed method, it is the one that should be used. The independent electors movement, now very strong in the states of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi, is an effort to reestablish the brilliantly conceived electoral college system of selecting presidents and vice presidents. In addition to the independent electors movement and various third-party efforts in several states, two intelligent plans for political action have originated in Dallas. One is known as Independent Voters of the USA, which is working to get constitutionalists on ballots in 1964 as presidential electors of third parties in 11 southern states. Then independent voters will go to Republican and Democrat leaders and say, if in your 1964 National Convention you nominate genuine, proven, constitutionalist conservatives for president and vice president, we will disband our third-party movements in the southern states and give you maximum support. If you do not select candidates whom constitutionalists like, we will redouble our efforts and guarantee that your candidates will lose the 128 electoral votes of the South, and without them, your candidates cannot win. Now, this would throw the election into the House of Representatives. If conservatives in the 39 states outside the South support this movement to the extent of electing constitutionalists to the House of Representatives, the House would elect the constitutionalist to be president. Frank McGee's Political Coordinating Committee, also in Dallas, is working nationwide to recruit and organize for political activity inside the Republican and Democrat parties at all levels, from neighborhood precincts to the national conventions of 1964. Both these Dallas plans are sound. Those who order copies of this broadcast will get more details and addresses of the two organizations. Neither plan conflicts with plans of other conservatives to promote such men as Senator Barry Goldwater as presidential candidates in 1964. Goldwater, of course, has a good voting record and is a better conservative than any other Republican who is equally well known throughout the nation. On the other hand, in the 1950s, Goldwater joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and contributed $400 to that hate-inciting organization, which supports every major federal program to undermine the American constitutional system. Goldwater has praised Governor Nelson Rockefeller as a beacon of courage, and has made numerous statements to the effect that there are only very slight policy differences between him and Rockefeller. Goldwater has expressed high admiration and warm regard for Robert Kennedy, and so on. Goldwater's main disservice to the conservative movement occurred in 1960. Prior to 1960, many conservatives who liked Goldwater but feared he lacked forceful leadership worried about the drive to pin all hope on Goldwater. They believed that some time and money should be put into an effort then being made without adequate financing or leadership to get independent electors or third-party candidates on the ballots in 1960, so that if Goldwater weakened and threw his support to someone like Nixon or Rockefeller in 1960, conservatives would still have a chance to accomplish something. Others were convinced that if conservatives could show real strength at the 1960 Republican National Convention, Goldwater would fight for his own nomination and would vote the convention and lead a protest movement if the convention nominated Nixon or Rockefeller or anyone like them. The counsel of caution was ignored. Important conservative leaders put all their efforts behind Goldwater, and they made a tremendous show of strength for him at the 1960 Republican National Convention. Goldwater gave the conservatives no leadership. He spurned their pleas for leadership, At a critical moment, he folded and gave his support to Nixon. Thus, in 1960, Goldwater, in effect, played the role of a Judas goat, leading the conservative political movement up a blind alley where it was blackjack. Conservatives booming Goldwater for president in 1964 should take the precaution they failed to take prior to 1960. They should continue to support Goldwater if they think this a good means of building conservative strength in the Republican Party, but for the sake of our republic, they should not devote all of their political effort to Goldwater. They should give some of their time and money to efforts which will put constitutionalists on the ballots as presidential electors in 1964, so that if Goldwater again fails the cause, all constitutional conservatives will have some place to go and some real choice to make on election day. Supporters of fine men like Strom Thurmond should take the same precaution. Work for their favorite candidate, but beyond that, help to get constitutional conservatives on the ballot in all states as presidential electors in 1964. This is the only way to guarantee that conservatives will have a chance to act politically in the interest of saving our republic if Republicans and Democrats present the disaster of a Rockefeller versus Kennedy presidential election or some similar choice. The plans for political action which I have hastily mentioned are worthy of the support of all constitutional conservatives who really want to do something about sparing the nation the dismal prospect of choosing between Rockefeller and Kennedy. If you want to do something, now is the time to start doing it. I am Dan Smoot. Goodbye. God bless you. For a printed copy of this broadcast, send 25 cents to Dan Smoot, Dallas 14, Texas, and ask for 409 Political Action for 1964. 6 copies, $1.